a wood chipper, a kidnapping, and a pregnant cop. Hello everybody, today we're going to be discussing Fargo, the Coen Bros, in 1996 on Retrospectoid.
So where are you girls from?
Chaska, Le Sueur, but I went to high school in White Bear Lake. Go Bears.
Okay. I want you to tell me what these fellas look like.
Well, the little guy, he was kind of funny looking.
In what way?
I don't know, just funny looking.
Can you be any more specific?
I couldn't really say. He wasn't circumcised.
Was he funny looking apart from that?
Yeah.
So, you were having sex with a little fella then?
Uh-huh.
Is there anything else you can tell me about him?
No. Like I say, he was funny looking. More than most people, even.
What about the other fella?
He was a little older. You know, he looked like the Marlboro Man.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. But maybe I'm saying that, you know, because he smoked a lot of Marlboros.
Uh-huh.
You know, like a subconscious type of thing.
Oh, yeah, that can happen.
Yeah. Hey, they said they were going to the Twin Cities.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, is that useful to you?
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
Yeah.
Today, we're just going to be talking about our own involvement, I guess, emotionally and mentally with the piece itself, but also try to reflect upon the time. And joining me is my good friend, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Hi there, Todd. This is Alec, and it's good to have you here in my beautiful backyard.
Guess we could just launch right into it and just start talking about the movie. Really, for me, the way that I approached this piece was when I was 11. I remember when this movie came out. It was 1997. I saw it on VHS. Obviously, I couldn't see it in the theater, but my dad rented it. And so I just remember as a kid watching it and just being equally disturbed and haunted by it in a way that I didn't fully understand until I was an adult. But I think as a child, the best times to watch movies are when you're younger because you have that direct emotional contact to it. Alec, is that similar to your...
Oh yeah, I was a youngin'. Well, I was a little older than you. I was about, I think, 14 when I first saw Fargo, and similar situation. We went to Blockbuster Video around at the time. Yeah, shout out to Blockbuster. And we picked up the VHS tape, and I sat around with my mom and my sister and myself. I was really just captivated by the film from the opening, credits and the hauntings. It just took my little mind on an adventure, and like you, I was actually extremely disturbed by the film. It's funny, we laughed at parts, that were funny, but now when I watch the movie, I tend to laugh. At so many more parts. I feel relaxed about it. I don't have that disturbed feeling. But at the time, being a 14-year-old kid and seeing it for the first time, it really takes you on a dark path. And there are scenes in the film that definitely gave me an eerie, dark feeling in my soul, which I took to bed with me that night.
The thing that I like the most about the Coen brothers is that their approach to the human experience and also human nature in such almost a childlike manner with just like this dark humor. And that's another thing, I guess he touched upon that a little bit, that I as a kid didn't really pick up on the amount of humor in the movie, how funny it was. I remember seeing it with my dad and he would laugh and I would be like, why is that funny? Like I don't understand why, the conversation with these two prostitutes, why is this funny? You know what I mean? It just seems kind of weird and disturbing. And so that's one level of the movie, and I think that's really cool about all good pieces of art is that they have multiple levels to them, and Fargo especially. I think for me to talk about my experience with Fargo, we have to talk about first and foremost the lie of the movie, which is that the movie is quote-unquote based on true events, which is not true at all.
Right.
And that was but that's part of it too, seeing it as a kid and also seeing it as being real, because I remember at the time, a little bit after that is when the Blair Witch Project came out, and I remember hearing about it first. So this idea that you can involve yourself into something based solely around the idea that it was real or based on real events is a way, and that's exactly what the Coen brothers were going for, which is subverting this based on a true story idea.
Makes it all the more powerful, doesn't it? I mean, I bought it hook, line, and sinker too. When I watched it as a kid, I thought this is real. This is a retelling of events.
Yeah,
and that made it even more, scary for me, and just strange. So it's just unlike anything I had seen up to that point. Just really awkward, long scenes, long pauses, strange characters. films.
Even just the subject matter too, with what they're talking about, how they're talking about it. It's so human and awkward. And as far as the lie of the story and how we connected to it through the realism, for me as a person, I sometimes have a problem with the Reddit culture that exists out there, which is people sometimes want to incorporate too much into it that's not really there, or not the intention of the original artist or the art. For somebody who's a writer and is an artist, I think it, in a way, for me, for the long time, the way that I thought about it was in a negative. And thinking about it in this film, and also recently having thought about it, that all of that stuff is a way for people to connect with the art. It's a way for people to connect with how they appreciate it on an emotional level. And so that really changed my mind about this. So I think it's funny that even back in 96, 21 years ago, the Coen brothers were tapping onto something that was eventually going to become a huge cultural phenomenon with this Reddit culture of people delving in, maybe even too much, pulling hairs or whatever.
Yeah, nowadays, I mean, if something gets some notoriety, even if it doesn't, there's going to be a large group of voices dissecting it and pulling apart layers, and in some cases, like you said, maybe even pulling it apart a little too far.
Like the theory culture, I think is what I guess what I'm really getting at is like these theories, and they sometimes are so outlandish, so I think they're ridiculous. Especially when I feel like I have like an emotional stake in whatever it is, the content or the artist or whatever. I feel like on an objective level, I think there's some real value to it. But I wanted to point that out only because I think that's first and foremost one of the best ways to connect with your audience, and it was very smart. And you really also can't talk about Fargo without talking about the location.
It's part of it. It's a character.
It gives it so much more weight as well, like as far as realism is concerned. You know these people in a way. You don't even have to have grown up in the Midwest or even in Minnesota to get that culture. You know those people. That all lended itself into the surrealist realism of the movie, when you can connect with these people. And I remember as a kid too, like for instance, Marge being pregnant. That made me so uncomfortable through the whole movie, and that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Is that they're subverting this idea of the female lead. They're subverting this whole idea of this female role. You had to be these certain things, especially at that time. I felt like in the mid 90s it was all action. So you had to be this like beautiful fucking badass like sexy chick, you know what I mean? And so like this was the complete opposite.
It's so cool that they made this movie, and it was a big film, and she got what a badass character she was. Totally. And she was like you just said, the antithesis of everything you would generally expect in a female lead role, especially at that time. Like you mentioned, they're just so ahead of, I mean, could Frances McDormand have knocked it out of the park any further? But you're right, her pregnancy is a vulnerability with her character.
The actress itself especially too is a huge part of it.
Yeah, and she's good. She's good, and she's surrounded by darkness, by evil. She's a simple person. She wants to do her job. She wants to get back to her loving husband and her small little world that's so important to her. She's like a beacon of light almost.
She means well, and that's especially what I love the most in this dark world, this cynical world that exists in Fargo. You're stuck in it. It's the singular road in the snow kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like it's this very dark road we travel, and that's like part of the whole visual metaphor, I believe. You nailed it perfectly. She's this beacon of hope throughout the whole movie, where she we'll get into it in just a moment, but I think that like for me the number one scene in the movie that really ties it up is the thesis of the scene, which is the ending, where I've heard it referred to as "and it's a beautiful day" monologue, where she's sitting in the car talking to this guy, and that really for me is the statement of the whole movie, which is I just don't understand, you know what I mean? Like these incredibly weird, surreal things can happen in this world to these really normal people in these normal settings, and it's like, and we see it every day, but it's like I say it all the time and I don't realize it. Like I just don't understand, you know what I mean? Like, and it's a beautiful day, like today, in the world, if you really think about it, you could point out some really dark shit right now.
Absolutely, and I mean, let's listen to that.
So that was Mrs. Lundegaard on the floor in there. And I guess that was your accomplice and the wood chipper. And those 3 people in Brainerd. And for what? For a little bit of money. There's more to life than a little money, you know.
Don't you know that?
It's a beautiful day.
It's almost like a motherly, like a mother scolding a child. That
For sure. Yeah, it's not even handled with cynicism or any kind of negativity. It's directly handled exactly with kids' gloves. With this character who is in himself a giant child. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, he's very simple and he's a child.
They kind of all are in a way.
Exactly.
And everyone that she's surrounded with is so deceitful and cynical, like you said, and.
Do you think that maybe that like in the little boys, the 12-year-old boys that exist in the Coen brothers, they find these like maternal characters because they just find these, it's like, these movies are these forts that they built for these little kid characters, and they have these, like for instance, I love Holly Hunter. Holly Hunter is one of my favorite actresses, and she's in Raising Arizona, which is my favorite Coen brothers film.
Oh man.
She has that quality, which is that she can be there with Nicolas Cage's character, but she's also like the Rock. She's the maternal energy. And I just think in my brain, knowing how men think, which is like, I just think that maybe we're just all little boys looking for these mother figures. And I think that she is literally in this movie the mother figure because she's this pregnant woman who also has this very innocent, childlike husband.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And totally all these... Like,
he's very simple, but he's loving.
He's loving, for sure. And that's like, something they touch upon in the movies, all of them, which is like simplicity is always the way to go. And that... I guess to like the idiom that the ignorant are blissful,
Yeah, I don't want to drive us too far off the road, but do you remember the way that she reacted to that character who was reaching out to her that knew her like in high school?
Yeah,
like his name was like Mike.
He was so awkward. Yeah.
Was it like Mike Yanagita
something
or something like that?
Yeah, her former high school. Yeah.
So even he was so deceitful, He just
totally. He set it up in false pretenses, and then
immediately
it wasn't even like a slow build up or anything to it. It was like almost immediate that he immediately got right next to her and just made her uncomfortable, and then propositioned her after death, just in the most pathetic way.
most
pathetic way, which is bringing up your dead wife, and so it's like that
went from the crying to she's comforting him, and then all of a sudden she realizes he's just trying to get laid.
And it's like, yeah, and then to me, for someone who's a writer and a male, I always end up putting my own male fragility in there, and I know for sure that scene's only specifically about male fragility and how, in a way where all of us are deceitful, but in this scene specifically, this guy was very deceitful to her in almost the kindest way, but it's like if you were in that situation, you would be totally fucking creeped out.
He's the creepiest. He's the creepiest guy, and he's very relevant today because there's a lot of creepy guys out there, and
the fact that she's pregnant, you know what I mean?
God,
she's in a committed relationship. She loves her husband. The guy knows them. You know what I mean?
She's so pregnant.
But at the same time, like when you're in that emotional state after loss and like that, like even then it's understandable. You know what I mean? It's all understandable, and I think it takes multiple viewings to kind of, because when I was a kid I was like, that guy's creepy, I don't like him.
Really? Because I still feel that way.
And then but as an adult I feel pity, because it's I feel compassion even too. It's like, and that's what Marge is coming from too. This confused compassion where you're just like, what do I do?
She's bewildered when he starts crying and telling her about these, and she's taken aback. She wants to comfort him.
Yeah.
But to me, that's all a ruse. Whereas you're taking it from a point of view where he's, he's genuine in his sorrow for his wife, and then it just leads into that. Whereas me, I'm thinking his whole purpose of being there is he's gonna bust a move, and
that's totally, and that's part of the whole experience, right?
Sure.
That's part of it, and who knows where that? I mean, that comes from somewhere.
It's actually Eden Prairie, that school district. So, Chief Gunderson then. Oh, so, you went and married Norm's son of a Gunderson.
Oh, yeah, a long time ago.
Great. So, what brings you down? Are you down here on that homicide, if you're allowed to, to discuss that?
Oh, yeah, but there's not a heck of a lot to discuss.
Okay.
Well, what about you, Mike? Are you married? You got kids?
Yeah, well, I was married. I was married to... You mind if I sit over here? I was married to Linda Cooksey.
No, why don't you sit over there? I prefer that.
Huh? Okay.
I think he's done.
Sorry.
Oh, no, just so I can see you. Don't have to turn my neck.
Oh, sure. I understand. Yeah. I didn't mean to...
No, that's fine.
Sorry. Sorry. I was married to Linda Cooksey. You remember Linda? She was a year behind us.
Yeah, I think I remember. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it didn't work out, huh?
And then I've been working for Honeywell for a few years now.
Oh, well, they're a good outfit.
Yeah, if you're an engineer, yeah, you could do a lot worse. But it's not. It's nothing like your achievement.
Oh, well, it sounds like you're doing really super.
It's not that. It's not that things didn't work out. It's Linda had leukemia. You know, she was she passed away.
No.
It was tough. It was long. She fought real hard, Marge. You know, that's what can you say? Oh, better times, huh?
Better times.
Oh, and then I saw you on the TV, and I remembered, you know, I always liked you.
Well, I always liked you.
I always liked you so much.
So, Mike, should we get together another time, you think?
No, I'm sorry. It's, you know, I shouldn't have done this. I thought we'd have a really terrific time.
It's okay, Mike.
You were such a super lady. And then I've been so lonely.
How are you, Stan? How you doing, Wade?
Good to see you again, Jerry. If these numbers are right, this looks pretty sweet.
Oh, those numbers are right, all right. Believe me.
This is doable.
Congratulations, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks, Stan. Well, it's a pretty,
What kind of finder's fee are you looking for?
Huh?
The financials are pretty thorough, so the only thing we don't know is your fee.
My fee? Wade, what the heck are you talking about?
Stan and I are okay.
Yeah?
We're good to load in,
Yeah?
but we never talked about your fee for bringing it to us.
No, but Wade, see, I was bringing you this deal for you to loan me the money to put in. It's my deal here, see?
Jerry, we thought you were bringing us an investment.
Yeah, right.
You're saying... What are you saying?
You're saying we put in all the money and you collect when it pays off.
No, but I'd pay you back the principal and interest. Heck, I'd go 1 over prime.
We're not a bank, Jerry.
If I wanted bank interest on $750,000, I'd go to Midwest Federal, talk to old Bill Deal.
He's at North Star.
He's at...
No, but see, I don't need a finder's fee. I need... Finder's fees, what, 10%? Heck, that's not going to do it for me. I need the principal.
Well, Jerry, we're not going to just give you $750,000.
What the heck were you thinking? If I'm only getting bank interest, I want complete security. Heck, FDIC. I don't see nothing like that here.
Yeah, but Okay, I guarantee you your money back.
I'm not talking about your damn word, Jerry. Jeez, what the heck are you...
We're not a
But
bank,
that's a good
Jerry.
example, I think, of how the Coen brothers are able to subvert a scene. And one of the good things about the Coen brothers on a technical aspect, this is something Roger Deakins likes to do. And I'll be talking a lot about Roger Deakins because I love the guy. But something he does is a really intimate A-B shot. And a reverse shot or A-B shot is basically where you have 2 subjects and you reverse between the 2 of them, mostly done during a conversation. Mm-hmm. He does something that's really unusual, which he really gets into the character space between the conversations during an A/B. But he tends to use the Coen brothers, when they work with Roger Deakins, they only use a 27 or 32 millimeter, and so those are pretty wide angle lenses. What that creates an effect is the depth of field. It creates an intimacy with your subject matter, and so you're involved with these characters. So even like on a very subconscious level, you might not even be picking up on it, but your brain is.
Right.
Is that you are with these characters, you're in this conversation, you know these people, so you're there, and it's all part of the manipulation of filmmaking
Yeah.
storytelling, which is you involve yourself.
Yeah, and even if you're not aware, like you said, of the technical aspect, you certainly do feel it, and it affects you.
Yeah.
Just to briefly touch back on Fargo as a character itself, the town, to me, even though, like you said, we know these people as in, we know these blue-collar people, I hate to say simple, but, you know, they live their lives kind of in a simple manner and do their jobs, and there's a quiet town.
Oh well, they're characters for sure. They're made to be simple, I feel.
Right. Yeah. And to me, the whole feeling of the town, though, and this might just be coming from me and my limited background, but I felt like it was almost like another planet.
For sure. Yeah.
It really felt like this icy, like alien dwelling where there's this small, simple town, and something bad is coming through. There's a dark cloud coming through, and people are getting murdered. It almost felt like another world to me, or you know, there's an abstract quality that, at least when I was younger and watching it, it captivated me. It was unlike anything I had seen before or experienced before, really, in my life.
No, yeah. The way that Roger Deakins uses the cinematography and the way that the snow and the environments, like for instance, some of my favorite scenes are the compositions that are from an aerial view above the parking structures, or how characters are lost, how the essence of the world, or just being on like this human path in life. You're almost this individual lost in this world of existence, you know, and it's so cold. I mean, it's not just cold as in, you know these people are shivering and bundled up, but it's cold as in lacking of any warmth or it's just desolate, and for sure, and that goes back along with the theme too, which you have to find the warmth and the hope in the world. It's not something that's going to be readily available. If anything, what's going to be readily available to you is going to be these shitty characters. You're going to find, you're going to run into these thieves.
Funny-looking guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you know, one of my favorite scenes, by the way, of the movie. But you know, you have these characters. I think we can get into as well right now. You know, you have William H. Macy's Carey, who's this guy, and it's like, for me as an adult, I realize the complexity of his character, but at the same time, I always reach back to that idea that I don't like him. And you're not supposed to like him at all. You're supposed to barely relate to him, because if anything, he's the antagonist of the movie.
I actually felt pity for him throughout the whole film. I didn't like him, but I just felt like every step he took was another step further, like into him digging his own grave.
Totally, and I feel like that's mostly attributed to William H. Macy's performance, to be honest. Because I think in the writing, like looking at the writing objectively, the character is just supposed to be this really wormy, pathetic guy who
he's absurd,
and he lives in this world, and he's a male who has a father who is this ultra masculine, this idea, and this is going back to the idea of subverting cultural expectations that happens in these stories. Jerry is he is the deflated male. He is the
so
weak
deflated.
male.
He's deflated by his father. He's deflated by his wife.
His job.
He's deflated by his kids.
Everything.
And
everything
he just wants that one chance.
We live in a world that puts people like this in that situation. So in a way, he is a victim of circumstance. That being said, though, I think one of the biggest things that the Coen brothers talk about is morality, or moral relativity.
Lack thereof.
Moral relativity is basically like, you know, it's all relative, and so he is able to justify his actions based around, you know, what it is that he wants to do. And so in the story, he wants to pay these two guys to fake a kidnapping. Well, actually perform a kidnapping, which is a trauma that he's, you know, paying to bid on his wife.
He's willing to inflict that.
Exactly, to dehumanize his wife. And so if you watch the movie, they find this way of dehumanizing this woman throughout, not only like as her character, but once she gets the hood on, she's dehumanized.
She has a bit.
And so
she has a bit of a rough go.
She's basically the, you know, the MacGuffin. She's the, you know, she's the thing, the propellant for the story. And so like this guy Jerry hires these two guys, Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormare, two characters who I think I also, all these characters I've been able to kind of reflect on mostly as an adult, to see them through adult eyes.
And when you see the movie, even as a kid though, you see Jerry, you very easily recognize him as just a bumbling idiot. I mean, he is just so bad at everything he does. He's so stupid.
He botches what could normally be to a normal person like an easy way, and you know, and then he also botches his only way out, which is like, you know, this deal that happens, and then he gets screwed over in the end. So
Of
it's
course
like,
he does.
I mean, as an adult, I kind of like, you know, I get him, but like I said, to me he's the antagonist. If there's an antagonist to this film, it's him. He hires Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormare, who plays Carl, and I'm pronouncing his name. Gaear, I believe it. Yeah.
To me, you know, he's quiet. He doesn't say anything. He's focused. He's the darkest. You know, he's almost pure evil with his character. Just in my mind, that's the way I saw it.
Well,
and I saw Steve Buscemi's character as Carl as he's just a bad criminal. He has no moral compass, like you touched on earlier, and he also
if he did, he has a lot of ways to justify what he does.
Sure, but he also offers a lot of humor throughout the film because nothing seems to go his way as well.
Can you crack a fucking window open, man? You know, it's proven that secondhand smoke is carcinogen, you know, a cancer agent. Hey, look at that, Twin Cities. It's the IDS building, the big glass one, tallest skyscraper in the Midwest after the Sears in Chicago or John Hancock building, whatever. You never been to Minneapolis?
Nope.
Would it kill you to say something?
I did.
No. It's the first thing you've said in the last 4 hours. That's a fountain of conversation, man. That's a geyser. I mean, whoa, Teddy, stand back, man. Shit. I'm sitting here driving, doing all the driving, man. The whole fucking way from Brainerd, driving, just trying to chat. You know, keep our spirits up, fight the boredom of the road. You can't say one fucking thing just in the way of conversation. Oh, fuck it. I don't have to talk either, man. See how you like it. Just total fucking silence. Two could play at that game, smart guy. We'll just see how you like it. Total silence.
Break down the two characters as being like the same side of the same coin, which is that we have these two characters that have a way of thinking and a way of looking at morality. But on one hand, you have this Stormare character who is a foreigner, so that's obvious why they chose him is because that he plays the other. He's the alien version of that side of the coin. As Jung would call it, the darkness. You know what I mean, like the shadow that exists in the human existence. And then you see Steve Buscemi's side of the moral relativity, which is that like he is somebody that we do know that is a recognizable evil, which is that there's somebody that we know, either a car dealer, ironically, or that friend you know who sold you pot when you were a kid or whatever, you know, and we know that guy who's just that slimy character who is willing to do whatever it takes to justify his actions because
to benefit himself. And also he's you know, you're not afraid of the Steve Buscemi character in the film. He offers some comic relief, but you know that he's a bad dude. And then the Peter Stormare character, to me, I'm afraid of him. Like, it's his face, it's what he's willing to do with no regard for anyone. I mean, I feel like he has no problem.
He's like a shark. He's basically like a shark. He's got those blank eyes. You know, he's smoking that cigarette. His gaze is always forward. He's a machine.
He's icy.
And like I said, with Steve Buscemi, he's, you know, when you see him when he's at his worst, he's got a hole in his face. He's bleeding. He's dirty. He's fucking pissed off because of all this stuff. He's cold,
always irritated.
He's always miserable. You know what I mean? And
he's always pissed off. You know, one thing I'd like to point out is that William H. Macy, Steve Buscemi, Peter Stormare, Frances McDormand, is this the defining movie of all of their careers? Is this... William H. Macy's made so many good films and has so many great performances.
I'm thinking of Pleasantville. He was so great in that movie. Right, he's so good in every movie that he does. It's hard
Magnolia,
to say. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, this is really up there for all of these
Well,
actors.
I think that I guess what my answer to that question would be that this movie was pivotal for those actors, especially as a turning point for all of them. We didn't know William H. Macy before this movie. This movie made him as an actor.
Right.
We didn't really know Steve Buscemi before this point. This made him as an actor. Frances McDormand was already pretty established, but much like Holly Hunter, she did have kind of a lagging in the early 90s.
So I'm going to point out something that doesn't really prove anything, but it's interesting because I happen to have IMDb in front of me to help me along with this podcast. And when I click on William H. Macy, Buscemi, Stormare, and Frances McDormand, an interesting thing you'll find is that, you know how it shows known for, and then it'll show like the posters of the films they're most known for. Fargo's the first movie that pops up for all of them. And I really feel that it's when I think of those actors, I can't think of them without thinking of Fargo.
For sure. I think like on a pedestrian level, for most people, I think is the gateway drug to all of these actors,
which is incredible,
and for the Coen brothers too. Yeah,
because they've done so much great work, and yet for them to just like have this iconic performance for each of them in this film, it just shows how great the movie is and how well the Coen brothers executed their vision.
100%. We have these idiot characters, very simplified in a very simple way, and so we have William H. Macy's character Jerry, who decides to hire these two guys. They meet in this bar and they have this very ridiculous conversation.
Yeah, how you doing? So, we all set on this thing then?
Sure, Jerry, we're all set. Why wouldn't we be?
Yeah, no, I'm sure you are. Shep vouched for you and all. I got every confidence here in you fellas. I guess that's it then. Here are the keys.
No, that's not it, Jerry.
Huh?
The new vehicle plus $40,000.
Yeah, but the deal was the car first, then the 40,000, like as if it was the ransom. I thought Shep told you.
Shep didn't tell us much, Jerry.
Well, okay,
Except that you were going to be here at 7:30.
Yeah, well, that was a mix-up then.
Yeah, you already said that.
Yeah, but it's not a whole pay-in-advance deal. See, I give you a brand new vehicle in advance, and then...
I'm not going to debate you, Jerry.
Okay.
I'm not going to sit here and debate. I will say this, though. What Shep told us didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Oh, no. It's real sound. It's all worked out.
You want your own wife kidnapped.
Like a really ridiculous scene, and you can tell that Jerry's uncomfortable, and the way they have him lit, where he's like lit, but everything else is kind of just like dark in the background, and I could see myself in that situation. I've been in that situation before, not in that exact situation, but
right.
I've been in a situation before where you're with people that you really want to be around.
He feels very uncomfortable.
It's obvious he's uncomfortable, and the two other characters know he's uncomfortable, and they play to that. Steve Buscemi in that scene, he plays to that fear, and so he knows even though he's this tiny little Weasley guy, he's the guy that's in control.
He gets to be the alpha in that situation, and right. Everyone does when they're in a scene with William H. Macy, it seems. His character,
he
Jerry
deflates into nothing.
Mr. Anderson, is this your Burgundy 98 out here?
Just a sec.
Could you open the door, please?
Yeah, just a sec. Just a sec.
Bill, wait! No!
Jerry Lundegaard.
All right, Jerry, you got the phone to yourself?
Well, yeah.
You know who this is?
Well, yeah, I got an idea. How's that Sierra working out for you?
Circumstances have changed, Jerry.
Well, what do you mean?
Things have changed. Circumstances, Jerry, beyond the acts of God, force majeure.
What the... How's Jean?
Who's Jean?
My wife.
Oh.
What the...
She's all right, but there's 3 people up in Brainerd who aren't so okay, I tell you that.
What the heck are you talking about? Let's just finish this deal up here.
Blood has been shed, Jerry.
What the heck do you mean?
3 people in Brainerd.
Oh, jeez.
That's right, and we need more money.
What the heck are you talking about? What do you fellas got yourself mixed up in?
We need more
This was
money.
supposed to be a no rough stuff type deal.
Don't ever interrupt me, Jerry. Just shut the fuck up.
Well, I'm sorry, but I don't...
I'm not gonna debate you, Jerry. I'm not gonna debate. We now want the entire 80,000.
Oh, for Christ's sake, here.
Blood has been shed. We've incurred risks, Jerry. I'm coming to town tomorrow. You have the money ready.
Now, we had a deal here. A deal's a deal.
Is it, Jerry? You ask those 3 poor souls up in Brainerd if a deal's a deal. Go ahead, ask them.
The heck do you mean?
The heck you mean? I'll see you tomorrow.
So they pull off the kidnapping, which to me, when I was a kid, I remember this was so disturbing, and I was like, what? Like, it was so real the way it's shot, objectively. But as I watch it as an adult, it's really funny.
It's so funny.
It's so fun. There's slapstick in there. She gets in the shower. She runs out in the shower curtain. Like, it's just like the stairs, and like it's just so ridiculous. And that's part of it, where it's like, you know, it's dark, but there's a lot of comedy there. I'd like to point out, since you know this is our discussion not only about Fargo but also the Coen brothers, which is that there's a scene in Burn After Reading where a lot of people didn't like this. This actually, for a lot of people, for some reason, made the movie not good, even though like they probably loved it before this point. But when Brad Pitt was shot, you know, and I don't know if you've seen it, right?
Yeah,
so I mean, like when Brad Pitt's character was killed, that to me is exactly that. These two scenes in my mind are synonymous, which is that they're, you know, they're dark, they're real, but they're also played to be kind of funny in a way. And it's very shocking.
There's so much humor in the darkness, and by the way, I love Burn After Reading. Screw all the haters, you know. I think it's a good movie, but
I think that just to touch on it real quick, I just think that the Coen brothers at this point now, especially, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
and they
just don't care.
They don't. Well, I think, yeah, exactly. They know that whatever they're going to make, people are going to watch.
Sure.
And, I mean, it worked really bad for George Lucas to be in that place, but I think for them it really, for instance, Hail Caesar I really like.
I do too, and
I just recently rewatched it again after I had not seen it for a couple years, and I think that what they have been able to do in these films, Fargo is right in between this crux of them expanding into becoming more attuned to what it is that what makes them good.
Are the Coen brothers filmmakers that you're most excited to go see? Are they on that like special list?
To be honest with you, I wouldn't say that they are. It depends on the project based. Like Hail Caesar came out, I wasn't crazy interested in watching it. For instance, you know, the other ones that have come out recently, there's a few of them I probably haven't even seen. That
I actually, to tell you the truth, I'm still super excited. When I see there's a new Coen brothers film, I'm happy to get in that car and let them drive me wherever they're going to take me. And I just think there's no one like them. Obviously, there's other filmmakers that I adore, but they're on the short list for me personally.
No, yeah, I mean, I really do enjoy a lot of their stuff. It's just that, like, you know, as an adult, you find yourself in this space where you have to really choose and really fight to make yourself. I mean, The Big Lebowski, you know, No Country for Old Men was probably the one that I liked the most that came out recently.
Brilliant. Yeah.
It was very good. True Grit was also really good.
I love True Grit. I thought they did a nice job with that.
You know, but with all these movies, they have this humor, the ash scene and you know, dumping the ashes in The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
You took them. As you took so many bright, flowering young men at Quezon, at Londoc, at Hill 364. These young men gave their lives. And so did Donnie. Donnie, who loved bowling. And so, Theodore Donald Karabatsos, in accordance with what we think your dying wishes might well have been, we commit your final mortal remains to the bosom of the Pacific Ocean, which you loved so well. Good night, sweet prince. Oh shit, dude, I'm sorry.
You know, in True Grit, something that reminds me of Fargo a little bit. You know, the scene that's really hard to watch in True Grit for me is the scene where he's rushing back to treat the girl who's been bit.
Right.
And he's riding that horse to death.
To
try to ride it back, and the horse finally ends up collapsing, and you know, he Mercy kills the horse. That scene just showing the cruelty in the world is something that it's a reoccurring theme in all their movies, and especially Fargo. I feel like the cruelty, that's what gets you as a kid when you watch Fargo for the first time.
I
mean,
just like that. I think that's also kind of for me as a cynical adult is that I think that the humor derives from how blatant the ugliness is in those scenes. And like you said, in that scene in True Grit especially, that's that moment where it's really supposed to get to, because the stakes are really high, you're emotionally invested, the film's already almost over, you've been on this journey with these characters, if you've stuck around long enough, because I know a lot of people didn't like that movie. But
screw the haters.
Yeah, exactly. We're not here to talk about that. But
yeah,
that scene in particular, the one that you're talking about, for me especially, I think had probably the most. I mean, it's designed to have. It's the catharsis. You know,
it hits you hard.
We must stop. Little Blackie is played out.
We're miles yet. Come on, you!
No!
That's it, come on now!
No, stop! He's getting away.
Who's getting away, sis?
Cheney.
That scene really does kind of talk about like realness
and human, and how cruel human nature can be, and just how cruel the world can be, and how bleak everything is. But there's so much beauty out there. But look at these slimy humans and what they're doing out there.
And we can kind of at least laugh about it. We're human beings. We do our best at, you know, whatever. In fact, we do better than that. We have, you know, characters who try to do better, and things that come up that test us as human beings. And that's the struggle that's the diverting point, the fork in the road for us to decide. And that's where we come out at the end.
Right.
And sometimes with these movies, especially with the Coen brothers, there's no resolve to that. And that's life. There's not always a resolve to this moral, you know, journey we go on. You know, how are you supposed to really feel at the end of True Grit, or at the end of Fargo, or, you know, that's the haunting part of it. That's what you're supposed to really think about, is that it leaves you with these questions in your mind about yourself. It leaves you with these questions about society. And so you begin to really kind of just take this inverted, and I think that's why Fargo especially is pinnacle, or rather the shining example of what the Coen brothers do best, that they're great storytellers, they're great directors who bring together a lot of really good actors to play these characters. Steve Buscemi, for instance, Carl was directly written for him. He was really specifically for Steve Buscemi.
And that's great, because, I mean, who would have been better in that role? No one.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, when I was a kid, when people would talk about Fargo, they would only talk about him.
Right.
So, you know, and the wood chipper. The wood chipper was like part of it, Steve Buscemi's part, and that was...
He kind of stole it. Yeah, he kind of stole the film, and but not to take away from the great performances, especially Frances McDormand for me, but... Yeah, I mean, when I walked away from Fargo, just exactly what you're saying was true for me, because I walked away with a lot of questions, a lot of feelings. I felt dark. I had this dark cloud that, you know, carry over me as I left that film, and you know, I watched it with my sister and my mom, and my mom got it right away and enjoyed it and thought it was funny but also horrifying. And then I think my sister and we kind of walked away and we're just like, oh my God, what did we just see? And there's no resolution, you know. There's no happy bow that's tied around it. I mean, Of course, she solves the case and she brings in the guy that's left. But
much like
the damage is done.
Right, like much like the floating world and there's nothing. Yeah, it's really hard to kind of grasp onto what it is. And it took me years to really kind of figure out how I fit. And it really does take you to be an adult to really understand the Coen brothers. I feel like only because you can reflect on not only the innocence that exists and the surrealism and the whimsical quality, especially like in Raising Arizona.
Yeah.
That to me, the reason why I love that movie so much is that it's so absurd. It plays out like a little like story that you would tell, like a child, and then there's all that country western yodeling that I fucking love.
It's perfect.
It's everything of John Candy's, or not John Candy. I'm sorry, not John Candy. John Goodman's character in that movie is so great on the motorcycle, like with the lizard, and
it's in my opinion, Nicolas Cage's best performance to date. Still.
It's because I think that the story lends itself so well to being so subdued, and
he's so weird, but it works in that film.
He's subdued and he's also allowed to be weird and crazy, which is what you give Nicolas Cage an area to be weird, and he shines. But if he's given no areas to be weird, he'll find an area to be weird. Case in point, I don't really want to talk too much about Nicolas Cage, but case in point, Ghost Rider. Like I don't know if you've ever seen any of the behind the scenes footage where he's painted up and he's got the LEDs on his face and he's practicing dark magic in the background. You know what I mean?
He's not your best everyman.
No, but any good director can do good stuff with him, and I'm not one of those people that would say Nicolas Cage is the worst director.
We're not here to knock Nicolas.
Yeah, I mean we could, and I'm not trying to say that he's not also some of the things that people say that he is.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say though is that him as an actor, he really falls into that role, which is like he can be this really charming guy, and then he can also be this totally weirdo who's running around with like a ladder and a baby. And like, you know what I mean, like with a crazy wide angle lens on him.
So after we record this, you guys, we're gonna go watch Raising Arizona and have a beer, and then we'll be back to talk about that.
Yeah, in just a moment we'll be right back. So now we're back. We just saw Raising Arizona. I'm just kidding.
We're gonna go pick up Daddy.
Son, you got a panty on your head.
Talk a little bit about 1996. So like I said earlier, I saw the movie in 97 when I was 11. The movie did come out when I was 10 in 96, and having done a little research on this movie, I also was thinking about 96 in general, because that's part of what this podcast is about, is talking about
Talk to me about Todd in 96.
Todd in 96 was 10 years old, and he was in love with dinosaurs, because Jurassic Park, was still fresh on my mind.
Sure.
And that's really where my mindset was that I was into, nerdy stuff as a kid. I was a total dork, nerd, geek kid, and still am. So I was into more like Star Wars, Jurassic Park, young then, but I also knew in the back of my mind that I was really into film. I was really into these deeper philosophical or even like psychological aspects to film. I knew that they were there, but I didn't know how. Like I didn't consciously know, how could any 10-year-old? But so at 10 years old in 1996, I do remember here in Tucson we used to have crazy monsoons as a kid.
Yes.
And during the summer in July. and
Still have today.
we still have them, but not to the magnitude. That's all owed to El Nino. Anyways, this is not about that. And so it was a little different back then. And I remember the Summer Olympics were really big. I remember the Chicago Bulls could do no harm.
Thank you for mentioning.
They were amazing.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to be, Jordan or any of the,
yeah.
so there was that. I do remember 1996, the gymnastics was huge. Everybody loved gymnastics in 1996. I don't care if who you are, you're a liar, because you will remember the time that Carrie Strug broke her ankle. And she was carried off by her coach, that big dude.
Yeah, this big guy. All you need is this big Swedish man, or whatever.
I mean, if I'm going to be hurting myself, for sure, I definitely want a big Swedish man to carry me away with a big mustache, so that I know in my heart. He said,
"You can do it."
Yeah, in my heart, I know that he means well. But so in 1996, that was going on, and I do want to make a contemporary comparison to The English Patient, which also came out this year. What
do you think of that film now?
Well, I'll get to that. The movie won, right, and so it won the Academy Award. Fargo was actually in the same running, but incidentally, they used a pseudonym. I don't have it in front of me right now, but they have a pseudonym that they used because they were already doing so much on the project that they, thought it was narcissistic to add that to the.
Really?
There was some concern around the time that The English Patient was or during the Academy Awards, where they were worried about what would happen if they were put in that situation.
Okay.
And so even going as far as suggesting that one of them dress up as, which I think one of the Beastie Boys did to pick up for the MTV Movie Awards. Anyway, so that happened, and The English Patient, to be honest with you, even as an adult, even as somebody who has loved and who has lost and who has, thought about these things.
Yeah.
I cannot stand that movie.
It doesn't hold up for you.
It's not at all. Even as a kid,
you didn't like it then. You don't like it now.
Not at all. I'm somebody that can possibly get into like The Notebook. Even I am neither a white person nor am I constantly in the rain. So I'm not one of those people that you know what I mean. But I can get into that. But the thing about The English Patient is it's so dry. It's so historical. It's so gross with his It's very graphic in a lot of ways that I think that owe themselves to the story in a way that I did not find appealing and probably will never find appealing. Burn victims in a romance, I get the symbolism and I get all of that behind it, but I definitely think that Fargo was the better film.
It was. I mean, we just have to unanimously agree that. I think everyone listening, everyone across America and the world is going to agree that Fargo should have won that award. Now, The English Patient, though, I don't feel that it's a bad film. I've watched it. It's puzzling that it got that much acclaim. I'll say that.
I guess that's the fairest thing that anyone can say about that movie.
And Ralph Fiennes, what a great actor and some great performances in that.
I'd rather see him as Voldemort, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And Anthony Minghella actually has done some great things. My favorite is Talented Mr. Ripley.
That's a good one, and he has that quality. I think that a lot of it has to do too with like his choices as a director. I like The Talented Mr. Ripley as a story. I find really enthralling, and I like it. Visually as a movie, it's just not for me.
We're just gonna have to disagree.
Yeah, exactly, and that's fine. Just because that's the beauty of art is that you can, and
so
like I said, objectively, I can definitely say that The English Patient is a good story, and I can say that I get it.
And it was a book, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, no, it was a book.
But this isn't about The English Patient, but it is kind of nice to compare the two. And so 1996, that was what was going on, and something I did look up that I thought was really interesting that's pertinent to now, which is around June 12th. Well, on June 12th, in Philadelphia, a panel of federal judges blocks a law against indecency on the internet. The panel says that in 1996, Communications Decency Act would infringe upon the free speech rights of adults. So I think that was kind of interesting that we had that issue come up back in 1996. When I remember when I was 10, I was like, the internet?
Yeah.
That thing my dad gets on that makes all that noise, you know what I mean? I'm just kidding. I've been involved with the internet since I was very young. So that came up, and I think that's really interesting that even back then they were already, that this has been something that's been an issue for a long time, obviously.
And I think they underestimated the power of the internet and what it would become, and they had the guts and the balls to say, hey, let's keep this free. Let's keep this free writing, and let's not censor this. And
it was, right. It was supposed to be free. It was supposed to be free from the beginning.
Maybe there's some insight in that.
I don't know. But incidentally, the very next day, June 13th, 1996, there was an 81-day standoff between the Montana Freemen and the FBI agents in Montana. I don't know if you remember that. I do remember that because I just remember seeing these, hillbillies with guns on TV, standoff, and like there was a lot of FBI involvement. So I also think that's kind of a little pertinent when it comes hand in hand with the whole free speech and the whole idea of being in this country. which is that you can't express yourself, hopefully not violently. And so,
Yeah,
and so that
history repeats itself.
I happen to find that interesting. That came up in '96.
Sure.
Alec, do you want to talk a little bit about Alec in 96?
Oh man, it's embarrassing to
I
look
imagine
back.
silk blousey shirts.
Yeah, no,
Boyz II Men.
cringeworthy. Boyz II Men, absolutely. ABC, BBD.
Who didn't
the
love
East Coast family?
The Boyz II Men. I mean, come on.
I actually, back in '96, I was about 13, 14. I, like you, was also a nerd, but I was trying real hard to be cool.
Well, I feel like you were probably at the age too where you were trying to, at least started to think about getting laid. So.
I was, I had discovered this mysterious creature, women, and was trying to think of a way that one day I would get one to like me. Yeah, Chicago Bulls. I'm a Chicago boy. I moved from Chicago to Tucson not too long before, so absolutely obsessed with Michael Jordan. He had just returned back from baseball and was on his way to his 4th NBA championship against the Seattle Supersonics that year, and on his way eventually to 6.
Everyone was a basketball fan back then.
Yeah, no, who didn't?
And everybody was not only a basketball fan, you were a Chicago Bulls fan, because if you weren't...
Yeah, and even in Tucson, and we had a lot of Suns fans out here who'd faced Jordan, not too long before in the finals. Even they secretly love Jordan. Just
Who
love
doesn't?
him.
I mean, come on
now.
But Cinderella story, right?
Yeah,
Isn't
but
that what they
anyway,
say?
I was obsessed with wolves at the time as well. This is a strange thing. Werewolves. For some reason, I was just taken by short stories. I had a book of short stories about werewolves, and from there, that led to me going to Bookman's with my dad and us searching for every possible book about werewolves. And I was out there doing research about lycanthropy and
you were hunting
throughout history.
You were hunting werewolves.
I was ready, but it never. The opportunity never presented itself for me to go werewolf hunting.
These quests for the paranormal and the cryptid world didn't involve itself too much in your aspirations towards the opposite sex.
Yeah, surprisingly, it didn't really lend itself to that.
I couldn't imagine so.
No, it may have hindered me just a bit.
Unless you want to date like a chick who, at that time, was maybe wearing like Jinko jeans. You know what I mean? And
I certainly was. Yeah.
She was. She probably wears Jinko jeans, and she probably doesn't have too much love for herself.
So. I was wearing probably size like 38s, and my waist was like a 28. I had Jinko jeans that I still have in my closet today to remind me of how ridiculous.
I'm thinking now that I think that Jinko might have came out a little bit after this, like '98, I think.
It's all gonna come back, Todd.
Totally.
It's all gonna come.
Well,
back
I'm just saying that, and so I remember. So I'm looking at this now, and I'm looking at some of the music from 1996, and the Fugees, "Killing Me Softly."
Oh,
classic.
Come on.
I'm gonna list these all off, and you're gonna be like, those are all.
I'm gonna love them all.
Those are all fucking classics.
I'm gonna love them
Because
all.
You Loved Me by Celine Dion. I don't normally like her, but I love that song.
I don't know.
If I'm by myself washing the dishes, I will get down to that song.
I can't get on board on that one.
That's okay. So we have "You're Making Me High" by Miss Toni Braxton.
Yeah,
that's
my
a jam.
thing.
Yeah,
that's my thing.
She's got some pipes.
Oh, yeah.
And then this one here, "California Love."
Come on now.
Come on. I can't. I don't even need to get into it.
Is there anything better?
Come on. Yeah. Whatever's been said about that.
Right.
"Wannabe" by Spice Girls. Also, I mean, thinking back, I kind of feel like I almost feel like "California Love" came out maybe for some reason maybe 3 or 4 years before "Wannabe," but it actually came out around the time. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie, I was a huge Spice Girl fan.
I think Tupac was dating Baby Spice. No,
possibly.
No, okay.
Posh. I think it was one of them. That could be a rumor. We might actually be starting a retrospective rumor that maybe not exists, but it makes enough sense to me for it to be true. I'm gonna skip that one because I don't know that one. George Michael, "Fast Love."
Okay.
This was around the time that he was also about to be arrested for. It was during the beginning of the long string, I feel like, of the arrests and the drug and the sex stuff.
He was masturbating in a bathroom somewhere.
I think that happened a little later, but still, it was the beginning of it. I think you can see it in his music videos too, where he kind of reached this very weird BDSM type thing, and
nothing like a rest stop where you start feeling the urges.
Some people buy when they reach a certain age. Some men, they buy sports cars or whatever. George Michael decides to huff things in parking lots and pass
Rest
out.
in peace, by the way. Rest in peace.
Exactly.
Legend. Great music.
Yeah.
Great music.
Totally. "Unbreak My Heart" by Toni Braxton.
Yeah.
Amazing.
My mom was into it. My
Amazing.
mom was really into that. Yeah.
All our moms were into it.
Yes.
We all heard it. We all pretended like we didn't like it. "Until It Sleeps" by Metallica. This is around the time that Metallica was doing this is the time that we'll just pretend we're the dark ages of Metallica, because they were experimenting with the alternative. They had just recently cut their hair.
Things were different.
Alternative for sure was a big thing. And
Metallica fans were getting uncomfortable with what Metallica was becoming.
And Metallica was also buying into this alternative thing that was was growing out of grunge, and grunge was that grew out of punk. It's all kind of this counterculture thing, and so you either grow with it or you go against it. And Metallica made some choices that really screwed them over in the 90s.
Yeah.
They've kind of clawed their way back, and that's a lot to do with nostalgia. A lot of us are getting older who were into Metallica.
Yeah.
Let's see, No Diggity by Blackstreet. Love that song. Man. In fact, let's play a clip right now of No Diggity.
Yeah.
No diggity. I got to bag it up. She's got class and style. She knowledge by the pound. Baby never act wild. Very low key on the profile. Catching feelings is a no. Let me tell you how it goes. Herbs the words.
Some good stuff. Yeah. So that's No Diggity, no doubt. Also, Change the World by Eric Clapton. I believe that song came out during that Paranormal not Paranormal.
Change the World.
Yeah, that's the one with that movie that.
Phenomena. Okay.
I remember seeing that movie. That movie is cheesy as hell.
Oh, it doesn't hold up.
It was John Travolta's it was his attempts at
But he was really charming in it. Come on.
I mean, if I was like 50, you know what I mean, at that time, and I was in my little
if you were a housewife and in middle age, you would have gone for him.
Half a bottle of wine, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would totally
sit out on your porch and have a conversation.
I wouldn't go as far as, but I would definitely pop it in the VHS. That's for sure.
Right.
Mission Impossible. Don't remember that one. Pony, Genuine.
Oh man, come on now.
That obviously had a resurgence because of that Magic Mike.
I can't not think of Channing Tatum now grinding on a tool bench.
That's that exactly, and I'm going to take this as a platform to talk about the fact that there is nothing sexy about hurting yourself with machinery, with any kind of, for me, in order for my body to do the things that he did in that scene or in that trailer or whatever, it only requires alcohol, copious amounts of alcohol, and so those two things in conjunction, not a good idea. So
try that at home.
I really hope that Channing Tatum, I knew I was going to do that, Channing Tatum, I really hope that he was sober as a hummingbird, and I hope that he was careful. I imagine that he was, and I also hope that he is having a really good life right now.
I think everything that we're saying just harkens back to the fact that 1996 was the shit.
It really was.
Let's get in a time machine and just dial it to that year. Forget the Renaissance.
At some point soon, I will go into the 90s. That's definitely going to take a little bit more research. I don't want to do it by year because that would be just tedious, and that's not the life I want to live. So there's some hits that came out around that time that I think were really good. The movies. 96, the mid 90s was really good. We were still doing, I felt like in my mind as a little kid, we were doing good economically, or that's how it
felt
appeared.
Felt that way.
Clinton did a lot of really good stuff with the budget, or he was starting to do a lot of really good stuff.
He balanced it, yeah.
And so it was really a positive time in my mind for the world, and especially Tucson at that time was really weird. Then it was smaller. Tucson now, if you don't live here, has grown, as most places do. It has grown outwards and is kind of slowly started dying from the inside out.
Sometimes you feel like you lose a sense of community that we had back then, and some of that probably is nostalgia, and some of it is true.
A lot of cities have gone through this a long time ago. Tucson just, because of the nature of the city and because of the nature of the people that live here, it took a while, and it has still taking a while.
Yeah.
We barely hit metropolitan status, 10 something years ago.
Yeah.
And so,
about 1 million if you include everybody around us, but I still love Tucson. Still a lot of beautiful aspects.
It's for sure. It's different, and it's as an adult you grow, and so it's kind of cool that your city can grow and mature with you. But Tucson was really strange back then, and
a little more quirky.
It was quirky. The U of A was the highlight of the city, and so it still kind of is. It's a college town, but it has its own economy now. Outside of that, and being a kid, you have this whole mindset that's completely different, and I guess kind of shifting things back to Fargo. That all the mindset of how we felt, and I guess is just not only being 10 years old, and also it being the mid-90s, and also it being this film in itself that is on a very artistic and technical standpoint, in my opinion, as close to a perfect film as you're gonna get, as far as the story writing, the narrative, the characters. My only qualm about the story is that, and I think this owes to the realism because this doesn't always happen in real life, is that none of the characters really have much of an arc at the end, and that's part of it because at the end of the day, it's just another day for Marge. It's just another day for these criminal characters. It's just another day for these characters. So if I had to say that, the only thing that I would say that if I was objectively looking at this and saying that there was anything I could say that there wasn't a a strong pull on, which is hard to do in a film like this.
Yeah.
Is that there wasn't a whole lot of character growth. I think maybe the only character that would have grown in this be Marge, but that's in that scene, you know, that I talked about. My favorite scene, the It's a Beautiful Day scene, is that I wouldn't say that she grows because I feel like she was already that character at the beginning, but I definitely think that as a viewer, you grew in a way, and that's part of you imbuing yourself into the story, is that the characters don't have to grow, you have to grow with the story. And my opinion on this when I was 10 and my opinion now that I'm 31, I grew as a person, you know, and so
I did too.
And that's the beauty of this story.
And I really think you couldn't have said it better, and I think everyone should go see Fargo, and everyone should also go on YouTube and look up everything from 1996.
Yeah, if you're younger and you're listening to this for some reason, definitely check out the 90s if you already haven't. Check out the music, the video games, Toe Jam and Earl, look that up. The Adventures of Pete and Pete, look that up. Or you can just wait until I decide to put together a podcast for the 90s. But this has been Retrospectoid. This is the first episode of many episodes. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys, you know, have a wonderful, beautiful day.
Cheers, my friend.